Okay, welcome to Module 3. In this module, what I'm going to try to do, now that I have far more time, I am going to give you some video lectures and give you a heads up as to what you need to study. Hopefully this will be a better format. Let me know. I'm really looking for ways to help you guys out here with the reading. I know that it's very dense. For those of you who are atheists, this will be a very interesting module for you. And for those of you that are Christians, this will also be a very interesting module for you. I think that the controversy that comes up in these chapters and with these philosophers, people think that they are very deep and that with the Middle Ages being gone, now the Renaissance brings forth scientific knowledge. Well, actually, at the beginning, and you'll see that in your book, that really isn't the case. And the people who actually bring these scientific ideas to the forefront are really theologians. So I'm not always sure that there's such a big contrast between the two. And I know that I'll get in trouble for saying that, but I have reasons for that. So if you want to ask me, feel free. But I really think that those riffs actually kind of redefine what we're talking about. Science has a lot to explain, as well as theology, and I think that Copernicus, Galileo, Erasmus, very very definitely they were looking at the church the way that the church was, and they were saying there's some things that people are thinking that is not, and that they're dogmatically espousing as the truth that are not really the truth. And what they wanted to do was kind of highlight those things and say, you really need to rethink. So some things that I'm going to bring up for you in your chapter in this first part that I want you to pay careful attention to is take a look at Renaissance humanism, and you need to understand who the humanist is there, and that's Erasmus, and he's an interesting character. The Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther, in the Lutheran Church. Please take a look at that. Social and political change that's going to be going on, and the rise of modern science. And the rise of modern science is going to bring in inductive logic. And this is going to be, we're no longer going to be talking about kind of these a priori truths. Now, what is a priori? A priori means that this is what you get from reason before there's any kind of empirical knowledge. So it can't be that, you've learned this because of something that you've seen or something that you've experienced. Instead, you know it. Just emphatically, you know it. There's going to be a big contrast here. People are going to, the scientific side is going to say, well, you can only know things empirically after the fact, and Hume is going to pick up on that. We'll get to Hume later, and he'll turn everything on its ear for us. But the rationalist would say that you know everything a priori, and you know everything. Remember, Plato thought that you were a computer that came equipped before you were born. What happens? Why don't you know it anymore? Well, you forgot it. Not a very good explanation, but this is kind of the dogma that's been held on to. Neoplatonists, because they do take care of the issue of evil, so the church will hold on to that dogma. And it's a good one. Aristotle, even though Aristotle is not a theist per se, but they'll hold on to that dogma as well from Aristotle. So anything that goes against Aristotelian doctrine, Platonistic doctrine, you'll find that the church doesn't want to sway, to move from that. And the reason they don't want to move from that is that it's very eloquent, it's very nice, it all works together, and the ideas of circles, and nobody really wants to move away from something that seems to be working so well. The issue with the Copernican revolution, this is very important, and I would really stress that you take some time to know what they're talking about. And I'm going to include some YouTube videos for you on the Copernican revolution. Most of the videos that you're going to find on the Copernican revolution are going to be the issue of the distinct argument between the church and religion. Bertrand Russell is somebody who's going to pick up on that, and he is not a Christian in any way. In fact, he has an article that says why I'm not a Christian. I disagree with him on that issue. However, I think that he's a wonderful philosopher, and I think that he has a lot of really interesting points to make and things that we really should take a look at. So you're going to find that philosophers don't try to get in and say the other person is just in general or universally wrong. What they're going to say is there's one issue that I'm going to pick up on that I disagree with. So those are the things that you really need to pay attention to. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just try to find the things that you really disagree with, because we have a tendency now to look at people's arguments, or if they're a different political party or a different nationality or whatever the case may be, we have a tendency to universally disagree with them. I find that to be completely and utterly false. I would caution you in that. I think that sometimes we have issues that supersede any kind of political party. There we go. And they supersede any kind of ideology that we have. If we really want to get to the truth, which is what philosophy is about, we need to really take a look at everything that's there for us to look at. Okay, so here we go. Take a look at Galileo. Galileo is very interesting. And there was an interesting article or interesting documentary on what was it, PBS a few years ago, and it's very interesting. He was a Catholic. Most of these guys you're going to find are Catholics, and the controversy that he had with the church, he was actually doing work for them, and they actually put him under house arrest. Boethius, same thing. He was under house arrest. Um, so a lot of times we make much ado about nothing. However, Galileo had some interesting ideas, and Galileo is trying to take some materialistic ideas and put them with spiritual ideas, and that's going to be interesting. Same thing happens today with Darwin's theory, and people will say, well, I'm a Christian, but I believe that the Big Bang Theory is true. I'm not sure that you can reconcile those. There's some good arguments out there, but I'm not sure they're really salient kind of arguments for that. But those are the kind of things that, just because I want to hold on to one thing, I need to be very careful about reconciling the two things together. Okay, so what we're going to start on in the next video, and that is in actually chapter 13. So take a very careful look at that. Just because it's a small chapter doesn't mean there's a lot of really good stuff and really interesting stuff for later on. The Copernican revolution, when we talk about Kant, that is going to be extremely important. So pay attention to that. Galileo, the science that's in there, that's going to be very important for Bacon. So we'll talk about Bacon in a second. I'm just going to do kind of a little bit on the next video lecture. I'm going to do just a tiny bit on Bacon, then I'm going to do a bit more on Hobbes, and leave you with those, and then give you some interesting videos to take a look at. Okay, so we'll move on to the second one.